I'm Jim Huckabee. I'm really pleased to introduce you to Shari Fraker and this video presentation on shot placement. You're in for a real treat. There are 100 videos out there to teach you how to find and get close to the animal you're looking for. This is the only one devoted to getting that animal as quickly and as humanely as possible. Shari's invested 5 years of research and the knowledge of a dozen experts in putting together her presentation. When she first asked me to watch it, I did so really out of courtesy. We're friends, you know. I knew how important her research was and all the time she was putting in. And I knew about those life-size models she was building of game animals and their insides. So I watched. I wasn't going to learn anything. Hey, I've been hunting for 40 years. I'm an expert. You guessed it. I was glued to my seat. I could have used that stuff 40 years ago. And you're going to have a chance to learn it now. Now about Shari Fraker. She's a hunter. But more than that, she's a very successful getter of the animals she hunts, like big bull elk. She's a scout. She spends a lot of her time teaching others to scout for deer, elk, antelope, other wildlife. She teaches school kids and anybody else who will listen about the hunter's role in conservation and wildlife management, and about survival. She's a medal-winning rifle shot. She's been an active board member of organizations working for all sportsmen, bow hunters, rifle hunters, trappers, gun owners. Shari Fraker was the first woman selected as Colorado Bow Hunter of the Year. Nobody ever put this stuff together before. You've heard it. There's so much misinformation and partial information about where to put that arrow or where to put that shot on the big game animal. She's traveled all over this country just to share what she's learned. This woman is devoted to you and to me and to the future of our responsible hunting. Welcome.
The first thing I want to stress is that what I have to say is my opinion, which is based on my experience in the field and research. Since the topic is shot placement, it will be necessary for me to discuss body parts and organs of animals. My purpose here is to offer information which is intended to help you understand proper shot placement to accomplish a quick, humane death of the animal. Everyone makes mistakes. That is why we have erasers on our pencils. However, some mistakes we cannot erase. Experience is the best teacher, and learning from mistakes is a lesson we remember. But we can also learn from the experience of others to avoid having to learn everything through making mistakes. I'm hoping that what I have to say may help to prevent some mistakes from being made. There isn't any guarantee that comes with your bow or with your hunting license. There is no book of rules or computer formula that says, if you do this, you'll have a perfect opportunity for a shot with a perfect hit for perfect results in bringing home your game. There are just too many variables. The hunting opportunity is all that you're able to buy. The rest is totally up to you, the hunter. And there is no way it can be made a sure thing. You can't buy accuracy or skill. No hunter wants to lose an animal. It does no good to shoot an animal and not be able to bring it home. No hunter wants to wound an animal and have it suffer for any length of time. Wounding and losing animals is nothing that anybody feels good about, but it can happen. So we must be aware of this and do our best to learn how to avoid it and to try to prevent this from happening. In seeking out information on this subject, it became apparent there was a great deal of misinformation. One example is this poster showing the vitals. Most of the animal targets which show the kill area and where to aim are incorrect and misleading for hunters. This one is better than some. However, here is the same poster which I have improved on for use in this demonstration. You need accurate information about whatever animal you intend to hunt. For instance, bears are different from deer. This black bear was a large boar. We've all known a few of those, right? Anyway, this bear scored 19 and 14/16 and weighed close to 400 pounds. A bow hunter donated this bear for use in this demonstration, and he has provided a photo of the animal. Not only are the skeletons very different, also consider that bears do not chew a cud. Their digestive systems and organs will also differ. Compare the front leg bones of this winter-killed elk with those of the bear and the deer. Shoulder blades of ruminants, such as elk and deer, are attached to the top of the back with cartilage. Notice that the bear's shoulder blade doesn't have this cartilage. The bear's body is structured such that the shoulder blade and bones of the skeleton are held in place with heavy muscles and ligaments. This accounts for the flexibility in movement which allows bears the ability to do such things as climb trees and stand on their hind legs. The bear's rib cage is barrel-shaped. The deer's rib cage narrows and flattens towards the front with strong brisket bones. The bear's ribs are actually quite delicate. Its rib bones are only as big around as my little finger. They are round in shape. The deer's are wider, and they are flat. The bear's mass and strength is in its muscle. I measured the body of this bear at the site of the hit without hair and hide was about 18 inches. From the top of the back to the bottom of the chest. The shot was from a tree stand. The arrow entered the top of the back here. The broad head sliced through the right side of the heart and exited the chest here. The front leg bones would fit about like this. Take a look at this poster. A broadside view shows that the chest cavity target area is higher on bears than on cud-chewing animals. You need to understand the anatomy of whatever animal you are hunting in order to know the location of the vitals from different angles. The hunter also must know his own hunting equipment and his own abilities. A bow hunter, for instance, should not attempt certain shots which may be possible with a rifle. For example, the brain is a vital organ, and so is the spinal column. However, a broadhead kills by cutting. Therefore, the archer should concentrate on vital areas that can bring death by heavy bleeding. Also, these areas need to be easier to penetrate than the skull or heavy bones. So, it is equally as important to know where to shoot and to know where not to shoot for best results on every species. I have consulted veterinarians of large animals regarding the positions of organs of cud-chewing animals. As you see, the heart is located low in the chest cavity. The sac containing the heart is fastened to the brisket. I've shown the arteries which carry the blood from the heart in red, and blood returning to the heart is shown in purple. I've drawn a yellow line on here to indicate the muscle areas. And I have elk and deer models for you to look at. I'd like you to look these over from all angles for a better understanding of the body's shape, depth, and muscling. The ribs to the rear of the shoulder muscle is the area you should try for. You have only hair, skin, and rib meat to penetrate to the vitals here. Rib bones are thin, somewhat flexible, and there is spacing between them. Looking at the models, you will see that this is the narrowest part of the body section. I have here the frozen meat on the rib cage of a deer. Let me explain what you are looking at. The backbone has been cut off the top of the ribs here, and the shoulder muscle has been removed, leaving these ribs underneath. We ate these parts. The brisket is uncut, and you are looking into the rib cage through the top of the deer's back. The narrow end is the front of the deer here. The hole between the 5th and 6th ribs is where the arrow entered on the deer's left side and penetrated the deer's heart. The arrow broke, and when you look inside, you'll see where it hit the ribs on the right side, but it did not exit through the hide. It stayed inside, also going through the liver. This larger hole was made by the butcher when he hung the meat in the cooler. I took lots of measurements of this deer before it was butchered, and the total body height at the site of the hit, without hair and hide, was about 17 inches, from the top of the back to the bottom of the chest. And here is where the broadhead entered. This was an average size 4-point mule deer. It was a broadside shot from about 10 yards. The deer traveled about 20 yards. He stopped and then collapsed within sight. In the span of under 1 minute from the time of the shot, the deer was dead. The deer's front leg was moving forward, exposing the heart when I released the arrow, similar to this model. He was walking past on a slight rise above my position on the ground. So this hit was almost flat, meaning there was no sideways angle of the deer this way, and there was no uphill or downhill angle of the deer this way. The deer was close to, perpendicular, and level to me when this shot occurred. It appeared that the deer's leg moving back and jumping on impact broke the arrow. I saved these ribs because I don't usually carry out elk ribs uncut, and I originally intended to use these to test some broadhead performance on real ribs. I know how broadheads penetrate styrofoam paper and wood. Now, how does the body function? Doctors have established that death is official when the brain ceases to function. All of the blood in the system must circulate through the heart, the lungs, and the liver. The liver and the lungs are the largest and most likely vital organs for a fatal hit with a bow. A shot in the lungs may actually cause death from drowning. As a result of the drop in blood pressure and lack of oxygen reaching the brain, the animal faints into unconsciousness, the lungs fill with blood, and the animal suffocates. It's best to aim center of chest cavity for least margin of error. Remember that center of chest cavity is not center of body on cud-chewing animals. It's forward and a little lower than mid-body. Also, a broadside shot offers the best chance for a solid hit through both lungs. I've put together a model to help demonstrate what I'm saying. To help you visualize the rest of this deer, I've shown the bladder and the intestines on the poster. Bladder and the intestines. I have reference material and photos from veterinary books for you to compare also, with pictures of actual deer hearts, liver, and lungs which I worked from. This was also an average size 4-point mule deer. Look again at how the rib cage narrows towards the front. It angles from the top and inward. The rear ribs are the widest section of the body. Compare this with the other models and posters to visualize the muscles and organs and bones to avoid. The back leg bone would fit about like this. Take a look at what your target would look like when aiming with a broadside shot. Check out the angles. See how your broadhead might hit the ribs and the body at various angles. Compare this also with the winter-killed elk ribs, which I have here. Notice the difference in size and spacing of the ribs. There are 13 ribs for each elk and deer. This is only the first 7 ribs of the elk, and it nearly covers the entire rib cage of the deer. Here is the 7th rib, and the chest cavity target circle is from about the 3rd to the 7th rib. Visualize how much larger the elk's whole body would be. This is a 10-inch circle on the elk, and that was a 7-inch circle on the deer. And if you recall, the average deer's total body height minus the hide was about 17 inches, from the top of the back to the bottom of the chest. This elk's body, minus hair and hide, would be just over 2 feet. Let's look at the insides. The liver lies on the right side. It is outside of the chest cavity, directly behind the diaphragm, which is the blue. On the models, I've shown the diaphragm in blue, liver on the right, and the stomach is also shown in blue on the left. The kidneys lie near the loin, the colon is on this side, and lobes of the lungs I've marked out in pink. Blood traveling to and from the brain on either side of the windpipe. This whole left side is number 1 stomach, the rumen. Now I'll remove the stomach section. Here are the 4 stomachs. 1, 2, 3 behind the liver, and the 4th stomach. This shows the position of the liver on the right and the spleen on the left. This represents the food pipe and blood to and from the heart. The diaphragm, the blue, is a thin, dome-curved muscle which completely separates the chest cavity from the rest of the insides. I've left the edge of the actual muscle here for you to see where it is attached to the ribs. Liver is on the right, and the spleen is on the left. Now I'll remove the diaphragm. Here's the 2 lungs. The lungs are concave towards the center. The longest surface being on the outside next to the ribs. There are windows in the lungs where the heart is exposed on both sides, here and here. The heart nestles against the ribs on both sides of the chest at these windows. The right lung is the larger of the 2, weighing about half again as much as the left lung. It also has an additional air duct feeding air from the windpipe. It has 4 lobes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus a 5th behind the heart in the center. The left lung is smaller, having 3 lobes. This heart is a wax cast of the actual heart from this deer. I have other casts of liver and heart for you to see. And here is the 7-inch circle, which will give you the size of this deer's heart. There is a membrane panel between the 2 lungs. Now, if this membrane is not punctured, one lung can still function. So it does happen that animals have sometimes gotten away when shot in only one lung. I've done a cutaway here for you to see the major arteries to and from the heart. Now I'm going to put the stomach back without the other parts so that you may have a better view to examine this. Remember, the shoulder blade is held in place at the top of the back with cartilage and ligaments. The movement is in the ball and socket joints here. I'll demonstrate with the other leg bones. Here is the full movement of this joint as the deer were running. Notice the shoulder blade doesn't move, nor do the bones interfere with the aim point. And of course, you wouldn't shoot if the deer is running. I do not attempt shots, which I hope the arrow might, possibly, maybe, make its way into a vital area. I've shot enough animals and made mistakes, which has taught me that things can still go wrong, even when you try your hardest to make it perfect. Don't take risk. Some risk will always be involved, but always try for the best percentage shot. Perfect may still require some luck involved, but always try for the best shot at the best angle. Now, the size of the animal will make a difference as to what is the best shot angle. For instance, you need not wait for a broadside shot at a rabbit. And from a tree stand, a quarter-away shot may be a good shot on whitetails. However, I recommend broadside or nearly so on an animal the size of an elk. The odds are better to hit both lungs and to avoid the large stomach area. A quartering-away shot at the left side of an elk will likely hit the stomach. And when the stomach is full of grass and browse, it can be like hitting an excelsior bale, resulting in little or no penetration into the chest cavity and no blood trail, though it will kill the animal. A hit anywhere in the body, from the shoulder to the flanks, can kill the animal. But if you don't hit something that will cause heavy bleeding, there may be no blood trail. And finding the animal quickly will be difficult, maybe impossible. And though a hit in one of these arteries will be fatal, it is certainly a lucky hit from a shot that was actually off the mark. Shots in legs, hip, neck, most hits in these areas will result in animals that are wounded in muscle or bone, and they might recover. Or they may be crippled, and depending upon the severity of the injury, it could still cause death later. Any injury to a wild animal tips the scale in the favor of death for that animal. Remember that in the wild, only the fittest survive, Every part of that animal is vital to its survival. And though you may not recover that animal, another predator may finish it off, or the animal may continue on but not be able to survive the winter. Winter kills. It is very difficult to prove or to disprove how many wounded animals eventually die or survive their wounds. But the solution to that unknown, and the objective for the hunter, is a quick kill and recovery. You must follow up on every shot. No matter where you thought you saw the arrow hit, it may or may not be an accurate assumption. And sometimes the broadhead may have been deflected inside the body when it hit organs or bones. Also, if any part of the arrow is still embedded in the animal, it is still cutting as the animal moves. The archer must know not only the anatomy, but also the size of your quarry for you to be able to judge distances well. Sizes of whitetails vary across the country. Florida key deer are the smallest whitetails in the United States at 28 inches at the shoulder. Northern whitetails would be similar to mule deer, which would be about 40 inches tall, about waist high. An elk will be a little over 4 feet tall at the shoulder for cows and spikes. A mature bull could be as much as 5 feet shoulder height, and he will be 8 feet long from nose to tail. Even on a bull this size, the chest cavity target circle is still only about 12 inches. The skeleton doesn't change that much on adults, but we tend to put on a little more mass. I suggest you make yourself life-size targets to practice on. A front leg at the knee is half the length of the leg. So by folding it over or doubling it, this will give you the length of the leg to the chest. Then if you know, for instance, that a mule deer is about 40 inches tall at the shoulder, this will enable you to make a practice target the proper height and body width for practice. To prepare your shooting form, I recommend that you practice at distances of from 10 to about 55 yards, because you can pick up mistakes in your shooting form at longer yardages easier than at close ranges. However, when in a hunting situation, stalking real animals in the woods, I don't recommend shooting beyond about 35 yards, because the margin of error greatly increases at longer yardages. And there are variables involved with a hunter and live animals in the woods which make it not as predictable as shooting a practice target at known distances. Let me add this. I am able to keep a group of arrows in under a 10-inch circle at 55 yards. And once I even Robin Hooded an arrow outside from a kneeling position at 45 yards. But I still limit my shots at game to under 35 yards. Shooting at paper and shooting at live animals are two different things. On live animals, you must stick with the percentages and go with the best odds. It's not a lottery where you take a chance you might hit. You should practice at unknown distances outside in positions and weather conditions you might encounter when hunting. Practice with broadheads at foam targets because broadheads may fly a little differently than your field tips. Fine-tune your hunting equipment, but don't shoot for arrow groups to practice for hunting. You don't have to hit him 5 times in the same spot. You only have to hit him once in the right spot. So only shoot one arrow and then change positions, even if it's only 1 or 2 steps different. Because one arrow is usually all that you will get at that animal in exactly the same position. It needs to be right the first time. Practice before season on life-size targets. Don't practice on the animals when hunting. Pick your spot and make that one arrow count for the full score on the game. Now, what should be done after you've shot at your quarry? Immediately, you should sit down on the spot from which you shot. If you've never field dressed a big game animal before, then I suggest you carry a copy of Field Dressing Procedure in your pack. Take it out and read it over. Listen and take notes. Don't move from where you shot until you've marked that spot with a piece of survey tape, which I also recommend that you carry. Pinpoint in your head exactly where that animal was standing when the shot occurred. Note what the animal was doing. Did it see you either before or after the shot? Which direction did it go? Were there other animals with it? Where did you think the arrow hit? Was it in front of the diaphragm? Which side of the animal did the hit take place? Now, you won't be able to think this all out until after the shot, but these are all important observations to make which may assist you to find the animal. With your binoculars, look all around the area from where you sit to see if the animal is still anywhere in sight before you move. Now, cautiously and quietly move to the spot the animal was standing and mark this spot also. Next, line up your two survey flags and look for your arrow if you didn't see it in the animal. Look for blood. Now, there may not be any blood at the site of the hit, but if you don't find your arrow, then you should assume that the animal has it. Trailing tips are covered in the pick a spot, which is on the flip side of the field dressing elk. I suggest you read this. Now, I believe the most important factor which may determine how far that animal may attempt to run is that animal's frame of mind at the time of the hit. If the animal did not see you or smell you, then it may not be aware of what the problem is. And so, in that frame of mind, it may not run any great distance before it lies down or faints away dead on its feet, sometimes within sight. That's the perfect shot we strive for. But that's not always the way it turns out. There are many more hunters in the field these days than when Fred Bear first started bow hunting. Remember what I said about the animal's frame of mind? Well, if the animal has seen you, or smelled you, or encountered other hunters prior to the shot, or been shot at previously, his frame of mind will be much different than if he's unaware of any danger in the woods. In that frame of mind, the animal when hit is likely to run as far as he is able and attempt to get to a safe place in his home territory to hide. There isn't any book of unbreakable rules of what every wounded animal will or will not do. What the animal does, feels, or is able to do will depend on how much damage is inflicted with the wounds to what organs, veins, and nerves. And each individual animal's reaction may be different. A whitetail's territory is different from an elk's territory or a mule deer's territory. Again, there are too many variables to try to make a list of the rules or even all of the possibilities. The objective is still to hit the vitals, because it will then be physically impossible for him to go very long with a vital organ or artery severed. Now, animals can do amazing things when their adrenaline is flowing at the time of the hit. A pronghorn antelope can run a long ways in just 1 minute. Animals may travel some distance, even with a hit in the heart. But they aren't supernatural. They will only have so many minutes of life left before they cease to function. So, how long do you wait after the shot? I usually sit down on the spot any time I spook an animal, whether or not I got a shot. I will remain still to let things settle down before I move. The animal will usually run a short distance, stop, listen, and watch to see if whatever it was that spooked it is after it. So, if the animal runs out of sight after I've shot, I don't follow for maybe 20 minutes. But I don't like to talk about waiting hours for an animal to die. We want that animal dead in minutes if possible. It's also important to find that dead animal as soon as possible to field dress it. The agents of decay begin immediately after death. On an elk, the gullet will sour first, due to the thick insulating hair of the neck. Now, if I actually witness the animal die, or if heavy rain or snow is threatening to obscure the trail, or if darkness is approaching, then I check it out quicker. Again, we encounter variables. The only time I suggest waiting hours is if things go real bad and you hit back in the area of the intestines, because it would take hours for the animal to sicken, then die as a result of secretions seeping into the bloodstream. And there usually isn't much of a blood trail with a hit in this area. So don't pursue the animal if it is gut shot. Return with help. Not a gang, just 2 or 3 people. Organize a search to minimize noise and confusion. Watch and listen for crows which may have located the animal. Work in widening circles or boxes from the side of the last blood, try to pick up the trail. Check major runways, bedding places, and water holes in the area. Now this comes back to the importance of pre-season scouting, because the more you know about the area and the animals' habits that live there may help you to guess where you might look. Don't give up, think positive, be persistent, and learn from that mistake. I try to pick shots which offer the best possibilities to hit and enter the chest cavity in front of the diaphragm. The pressure of outside air entering the chest cavity through the wound is what causes a lung to collapse. Concentrate on this chest cavity target area. Notice how the diaphragm slants backward at the top of the deer's back. Some tree stand shots may work with an angle away. The arrow can still be placed to enter in front of the diaphragm. I have never hunted from a tree stand, therefore I lack any experience with this. But whatever angle there may be, sideways, uphill, or down, I only shoot if the angle is possible to be able to place my arrow to hit in the chest cavity. Ideally, I like a flat, nearly broadside hit to the chest cavity. But perfect and ideal is not going to happen every time, no matter how hard you try. So, being aware of any angle of the hit, also how far the arrow is protruding or the length of it when it broke off, can assist you to estimate possible damage to determine how long he might be able to function. And remember, deflection may add a plus or a minus on the damage done that can bring death to the animal. Again, there are variables which make it very difficult to set down any rules with a guarantee that if you do this, you'll have perfect results. But the best odds indicate a hit directly in the vitals will kill the animal in a short time. A quick, humane death. That is what we should practice and strive for, so we don't have to worry about trailing a wounded or dying animal very long or very far. My hunting style is stalking, and I prefer broadside shots. My aim point is this crease above the elbow at the edge of the shoulder muscle. This crease pivots over the lungs as the leg moves back and forth. And if you recall, the moving leg of a walking deer does not interfere with this aim point. I have killed all of my elk with about 50 pounds bow weight. My average shots at elk are about 25 yards. Put your efforts into becoming a better hunter, practicing proper shot placement, instead of relying on firepower or poundage to get an animal. Shooting 80 pounds won't make any difference if you hit him in the foot. The only bone you may need to break is a rib bone. 5 inches of penetration in the ribs here will go through the heart. The animal can't run if it can't breathe. If you collapse both lungs, the brain cannot function. There isn't much variation in how long any animal can live without breathing. Only minutes. Now, how long it takes for hemorrhaging to bring death does depend on the amount of damage to what arteries and whether the bleeding can be stopped or slowed to allow healing to begin. However, if the circuit of blood is cut off, it cannot be replenished, and the animal will bleed to death in short order. So, what's the best shot? In my opinion, a direct hit to the chest cavity offers the best odds to kill any animal quickly. And this applies to muzzleloader and rifle hunter also. It doesn't matter what you shoot it with. A properly placed shot will kill the animal quickly by any method. That's responsible hunting. And now, may I leave you with this message, and I think you'll find it's true. The harder you work, the luckier you'll get.
At least a dozen people have been involved in helping Shari put together her shot placement presentation. These are deeply committed people, committed to you and to the future of your hunting. Because the future of your hunting and the future of hunting for all of us depends to a certain extent on your responsible use of your rifle or your bow. We thank you for the commitment that you're making. She's right, you know. The harder you work, the luckier you get. For Shari Fraker and all those who made this possible, I'm Jim Huckabee. Good hunting to you and to all those who come after you.